Please start recording. Thank you. All right, just a couple logistics before we get going. Questions can be entered into the chat box in Zoom today, and we'll do our best to field these as time permits. You're also welcome to enter in comments to the chat as well. But again, we'll just do our best to field those as time allows. Comments can be submitted to Commerce using the form that we posted on our webpage. So we have an official form for stakeholders to enter in formal comments on our rulemaking, and we post these comments to our website. We really value your input and your comments. We actively use this information to better shape administrative rules to meet your needs. So please continue to be engaged throughout the process. Next slide, please. All right, so Commerce's mission is to strengthen communities, and we do this through a broad range of policy and programs, including housing and homelessness, business assistance, community services, and energy. Next slide. Wanted to provide real brief introductions to our team. So our entire team is dedicated to providing timely, actionable, and clear information about the state's Clean Buildings Law. My name is Emily Salzberg, and I'm the Managing Director for the Buildings Unit within the State Energy Office. Your presenters today are Donnie Westfall, Luke Howard, and myself. Donnie and Luke are technical leads for Clean Buildings. You'll also be hearing from Liz Reichart, who's a Senior Energy Policy Specialist with the State Energy Office. Next slide. So today we plan to focus on two topics, including operations and maintenance programs and energy management plan requirements for clean buildings. We're going to be focusing today's discussion on Tier 2 buildings specifically, which are buildings between 20,000 and 50,000 square feet, and all multifamily buildings over 20,000 square feet. Our objectives of today's workshop are to provide an overview of what's included in the law, to gather input on industry needs, and to review proposed language for energy management and operations and maintenance for Tier 2 buildings. Next slide. I'm going to turn it over to Liz.
Thank you, Emily, and good morning, everyone. Liz Reichart. I'm a Senior Energy Policy Specialist supporting all things buildings and this rulemaking in particular. So just here to remind you that this is what our rulemaking workshop agenda looks like throughout the rest of the summer. We've broken up the rulemaking thematically and have planned for about 1 or 2 workshops per month. And then after the month of August, after these workshops, the opportunity for public input does not stop. We currently have and will open comment periods both before and after that August workshop, so you can continue to submit your comments using that link on the webpage. Next slide. So both during and after each workshop, as I mentioned, there will be an opportunity for public engagement, input, and feedback on the draft language that the team walks you through in each of the workshops. Our goal with this rulemaking, as Emily said, is really to be inclusive and participatory. So really want to make folks feel seen and heard in the final rules that are put forward. So please show up, continue to be engaged. We only ask that you please be respectful. Please show good Zoom manners by entering your questions and feedback into the chat.
Thank you, Liz. So this slide is a summary timeline for major milestones for our Tier 2 requirements. So the first phase of Commerce's requirements under the law are focused on rulemaking. As Liz just reviewed our planned topics for workshops here. We need to have that rulemaking wrapped up by December of 2023. Commerce is required to provide building owner notification by July 2025 and to launch the incentive program on that same timeline. The first reporting cycle for Tier 2 buildings will take place in July of 2027. Commerce will be evaluating benchmarking data following that 2027 reporting cycle and may make a recommendation to the legislature to adopt a performance standard for Tier 2 buildings, which would come into place in 2031. So now I'll hand it over to Luke to talk about public comments that we've received to date.
Thank you, Emily. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We have received a lot of great comments formally submitted through our official stakeholder comment form. It's located at the bottom of our website's homepage. If you want to submit an official comment, that'd be where you can find that link. You can also review all comments submitted to date from our website. The next two slides, I'm going to summarize comments we have received since our last workshop. So please submit comments through this process. Your input is definitely integral to the development of the standard. So as you can see, this slide summarizes many of the comments that we've received to date. Many of the comments are requesting increase in direct and enhanced outreach, such as accelerator programs, similar to programs currently supported by several utility companies around the state. You also see that more specific guidelines for obtaining energy data from utilities with specific emphasis on multifamily residential buildings was requested. And the comments, several comments
Luke, we can't hear you. Sorry,
Oh,
can you go back like
I'm
2 seconds?
so sorry. How long was I?
Just about like 5-10 seconds. It's okay.
Okay, so just to summarize these slides, requests for increased direct and enhanced outreach, such as accelerator programs, similar to the programs run by utility programs or utility companies currently. Provide more specific guidelines for obtaining energy data from utilities with specific emphasis on multifamily residential buildings. Submetering is a hindrance to benchmarking, so consider benchmarking requirements at a level that would not require submetering. Next slide, please. All right, some requests for more funding opportunities. So expense of compliance is obviously a concern for many. And again, expanding collaborative efforts with established technical resources, both locally, regionally, and nationally. You'll see on this slide that you see a link to the Clean Buildings webpage. You will receive a copy of this slideshow, and you can use this as a reference for this summary, as well as links to different resources. Thank you. Oh,
one more slide there. Yeah.
One more slide in here. Yeah. So you'll see more public comments regarding specifics of training tools that are requested or desired. More requests for clarification. You know, as rules are developed, we will provide guidance documents that support the new rules and even current rules to provide more clarification. And you can see some other outreach suggestions here for underserved communities, small businesses, trade associations, etc. Again, if you want to read the specifics of each of these comments, you can find a link on our website to the log of all comments submitted officially to date.
The link is in the chat as well.
Thank you, Judy. Next slide. All right, Donnie, it's up to you.
Thanks, Luke. Hello, everybody. My name is Donnie Westfall. I am a technical specialist with the Clean Buildings team, and today I will be discussing energy management planning and operations and maintenance program requirements as they relate to Tier 2 of the Clean Buildings Performance Standard. So Senate Bill 5722 tasked Commerce with implementing requirements for the program that are consistent with RCW 1927A-210, but limited to energy management planning, operations and maintenance planning, and energy use analysis through benchmarking. Who does this apply to? Senate Bill 5722 expanded the requirements of the Clean Buildings Standard to include buildings between 20,000 and 50,000 square feet, which includes multifamily residential over 20,000 square feet. And just a quick recap of requirements for Tier 2 applies to buildings again between 20 and 50,000 square feet, including multifamily greater than 20,000, square feet. Compliance with Tier 2 requires benchmarking of building energy use, development of an energy management plan, and implementation of an operations and maintenance program. There is no performance metric for these buildings, and compliance begins July 1st of 2027. So this is a breakdown of the Clean Building Performance Standard by section. The standard is comprised of ASHRAE Standard 100 with amendments from WAC 194-50. The standard can be downloaded through our Clean Buildings website. So today's workshop will be focusing on Section 4, Compliance Requirements, Section 5, Energy Management Plan, Section 6, Operations and Maintenance Requirements, and Normative Annex L, Operations and Maintenance Implementation. So let's highlight some of the key roles that will help to develop, implement, and maintain the energy management plans and operations and maintenance programs for covered buildings. The building manager is responsible for maintaining the building, its envelope, and its energy using systems. Responsibilities may include compliance with the requirements of the O&M program and EMP. Building operator, they are responsible for inspecting, operating, and maintaining the building systems and components. Their responsibilities include fulfilling objectives and goals of performance as defined in the O&M program. And then finally, the energy manager, who's responsible for ensuring that building energy use is minimized without compromising the indoor environmental quality of the building. So this person is tasked with developing and implementing and maintaining the energy management plan. You may have noticed that the qualified person role is not listed here. As presented in the previous workshop, we are proposing that for Tier 2 of the standard, we will not require a qualified person to develop EUIs and UITs, attest to the completion of the EMP and O&M on Form A, or submit compliance documentation in accordance with Annex Y. We are proposing to allow the building owner or their designated party to fulfill these roles. We are, however, proposing that if a building owner does not utilize a qualified person as it's defined in the standard, the individual fulfilling the role of the qualified person that's outlined here would need to take some sort of training with a certification just to ensure basic understanding of the components of this law. So details of this haven't been fully fleshed out, so we really do appreciate your input and suggestions on what that might look like. And you can have an opportunity to provide comments on this topic in the Q&A portion of the workshop. And then you can also submit feedback or comments on the public comment form, which is, I believe, in the chat. So what is an energy management plan? An EMP is a living document that describes a building's energy performance, meaning it's changing with the building. As systems and occupancy changes, so too changes the energy management plan. As components of a building change or systems are replaced, the energy management plan tracks those changes and documents how the building is operating with regard to energy consumption and building systems efficiency. Typically includes or consists of building energy metering and reporting, energy use intensity reporting, energy efficiency measure implementation, operations and maintenance considerations for energy managers, and communication responsibilities. So what does that mean for Tier 2 buildings? Well, the building owner has to identify an energy manager to develop, implement, and maintain the energy management plan for the building and its systems. The EMP must track building energy use and maintain annual updates to the building's EUI and WNEUI. Reporting of building energy use and EUI will be done via Form C, an Energy Star Portfolio Manager. The EMP will maintain records of building occupant use, operating hours, and energy using equipment to ensure that changes of space use and systems don't increase building energy use beyond EUI targets or goals established by the energy manager. If applicable, the energy management plan will track any energy audit reports and or recommended energy efficiency measures for the building. Remember, there's no performance metric for Tier 2 buildings, so the implementation of energy efficiency measures is not required. But if a building owner chooses to implement energy efficiency measures, they would need to be tracked in the energy management plan. and operations and maintenance considerations for those measures would need to be incorporated into the O&M program. So the EMP must establish an operations and maintenance program for new and existing systems and equipment, which we'll go into more detail here further on in the presentation. And finally, the EMP will track communication responsibilities, primarily focused on informing building occupants about the benefits of energy efficient building operation, as well as providing basic instruction on efficiently using windows for natural ventilation, HVAC controls or thermostats, and lighting controls and components. So we've given a high-level overview of what the EMP entails for Tier 2 buildings. Now we're going to look more specifically at operations and maintenance programs. So operations and maintenance program, like the EMP, is a living document. It's used to minimize equipment failure and ensure energy efficient operation of building systems and components throughout their service lives. Specific requirements are documented in Section 6 and normative Annex L of the standard. Informative Annex D also provides a list of maintenance tasks by building systems that can be used for reference and to help in development of your own O&M programs. Reminder that the O&M program is a component of the energy management plan, and it lists inspections and maintenance requirements for specific systems and equipment within the building, and establishes responsibilities for maintenance and operations of building systems. Some objectives of the operations and maintenance program. So it needs to establish criteria for evaluation and commit the building operator and maintenance personnel to basic goals of performance, which include minimizing equipment failures, ensuring ongoing efficient operation of building systems, and performing identified maintenance. Other objectives include developing an inventory of building equipment systems and controls that include building envelope, domestic hot water, HVAC systems, refrigeration, lighting, controls, and any other electric power distribution and on-site power generation systems. Developing a maintenance plan for those inventory of systems that describes goals and objectives and execution of maintenance program. And then continue to revise the operations and maintenance plan as the building use or systems change. This is a living document that changes with the building. So we've looked at high-level requirements for Tier 2 buildings specific to the EMP and the O&M programs. We're going to look a little bit at some of the benefits that these plans can provide to building owners. So first, it can give you a better understanding of your building's energy use, right? Through energy use analysis, development of your building's EUI, you get an idea of how your building is performing in relation to other buildings with similar use types. It can improve facility and systems performance. So establishing inspection, maintenance tasks, utilizing consistent condition indicators that can lead to improved preventive maintenance and better performance overall. Reduced energy use, which saves money. So knowing how your building works and how it uses energy can lead to more efficient operation of building systems, which can in turn reduce the energy use of the building and ultimately save some money. Reduce performance drift over time. So consistent review of building energy use, established maintenance and operation protocols can help to reduce system failures, optimizing building operation, preventing major shifts in performance from lack of consistent oversight. More resilient buildings. So operations and maintenance programs can help to identify potential hazards in a building, help to implement preventive maintenance protocols rather than working reactively when systems fail. It can also identify opportunities for more resilient energy resources. And finally, it supports future regulatory compliance. So implementing EMP and O&M programs will get the ball rolling for building owners that may need to comply with future performance requirements for their Tier 2 buildings. So there's a lot to take in. We want to ensure folks that there will be support for Tier 2 building owners seeking compliance with the standard. Senate Bill 5722 includes language for enhanced technical support, which we covered a bit in the previous workshop in May. just wanted to reiterate that for Tier 2 buildings, Commerce is tasked with developing and providing enhanced technical support focused on benchmarking, building energy use, and assistance in the development of energy management plans and operations and maintenance plans for Tier 2 buildings whose owners typically don't employ dedicated building managers. So this includes, but is not limited to, multifamily housing, childcare facilities, and houses of worship. Furthermore, we were tasked with prioritizing enhanced technical assistance to under-resourced buildings with high energy use, buildings in rural communities, buildings with tenants who are primarily small businesses, and buildings located in high-risk communities according to the Department of Health's Environmental Health Disparities Map. We are actively developing partnerships and working with folks to create templates and other guidance tools for the energy management plan and O&M program to help building owners comply with the standard. So we appreciate all the suggestions for enhanced technical support submitted via the public comment form on the last workshop, and appreciate any considerations and comments for this workshop as well. Now we're going to take a look at our Tier 2 proposed language changes as they relate to the EMP and O&M. The following slides will cover the substantive changes that we are proposing for each relevant section. The entire proposed language document for these sections is posted for public comment on the website. And really, draft rules were developed by Commerce staff to provide just consistency between the existing standard and Senate Bill 5722. Wanted to note real quick that we are only posting language from the integrated document as it pertains to these specific workshops. We saw there was a bit of confusion in the public comments from the previous workshop. So we felt that it might be helpful to clarify here. So for this workshop, we are only posting portions of sections 4, 5, 6, and normative Annex L as they pertain to energy management planning and operations and maintenance for Tier 2. So there could be some missing language in subsections. That's intentional. If you would like to see the complete document for reference, please download from the Clean Buildings website if you haven't already. And additionally, our August 24th workshop will be a comprehensive review of all the proposed changes and Tier 2 additions to the integrated standard. All right, so definitions. Senate Bill 5722 changed the definition for covered commercial building by basically stating that it includes a Tier 1 covered building and Tier 2 covered building, and then defined covered building Tier 1, covered building Tier 2. Then the only other change here would be lighting schedule. We're proposing to remove lamps from the definition and only require inventory of lighting down to the luminaire level. Primary changes to section 4 is in 4.2. It would be not requiring the qualified person to attest on Form A that the operations and maintenance and energy management plans have been completed in compliance with the standard. It would still be a requirement for Tier 1. Section 5, energy management plan. The main changes here are creating exceptions to 5.1.2.12 lighting schedule and 5.1.2.13 lighting satisfaction survey requirements. So we're proposing that for Tier 1 buildings that meet the EUIT or buildings that have recently implemented a lighting upgrade, we would have the option, or they would have the option, to not complete these 2 requirements in the EMP. Additionally, we would provide an exception for Tier 2 buildings altogether. While we are proposing these exceptions, we still recommend them as they can be useful tools for building owners and important in the O&M program. And then we're proposing a change to 5.1.3, allowing the energy manager to provide access to, rather than a copy of, the energy management plan to building occupants and other stakeholders. So section 6, O&M requirements and normative Annex L O&M implementation. Not a lot of major changes here. Really the only proposed change to section 6 is in the exception to 6.6.2.2. The existing installed lighting power may proportionally increase when the current light levels are below those recommended in the IES Lighting Handbook 4. We're proposing to add or latest version of the Washington State Energy Code. And then no proposed changes to normative Annex L. So just to recap, highlights for proposed rule changes for tier 2 as they relate to the EMP and O&M, proposing to not require a qualified person, but we are considering alternative qualifications, potentially online training with certification, and your input here is greatly appreciated. And then installation of energy efficiency measures is not required, no performance metric, but if they are installed or if a building owner chooses to install measures, they'd need to be tracked in the energy management plan and operations and maintenance considerations implemented in the O&M program. And then exceptions for completing the lighting schedule and satisfaction survey for tier 1 buildings that meet the EUIT or have recently completed a lighting upgrade. And for tier 2 buildings, And that concludes energy management plan and operations maintenance program changes. Annalyn, can go to questions and comments. Is there anything in the chat question-wise?
Yes, thanks, Johnny.
Yeah.
So if you go back to slide 20, Susie was just wondering, I thought that there doesn't need to be an energy manager. So can you address that?
Yeah, so the energy manager can be a building owner. It's a role that doesn't necessarily have certifications tasked with it, so it's just a role. I mean, it's just a role that's defined in the standard that covers certain aspects of reporting requirements and requirements for developing, maintaining the energy management plan and the operations and maintenance, and then tracking building energy use and some of those roles there. Luke, do you have anything to add to that?
No, that's great. Yep.
Great, thanks. So Annette asked if there was a link to the slide deck. This slide deck will be posted on our website. It'll be on the homepage, and it'll also be emailed to the registrants. So you'll see it in your email, probably sometime next week. So Jeanette asks if we don't, or she commented, if we don't have an EUI target, how can we be required to not increase the building's EUIT? Let me read that again. If we don't have an EUIT target, how can we be required to not increase the building's EUIT beyond target, I should say?
Yeah, I think, the energy management plan, it pertains to tier 1 and tier 2 of the standard, right? And so this is just a role of an energy manager in terms of assessing the building's energy use, and just as a goal of that role, it's to maintain the energy use of the building and ideally not allow it to increase over whatever that target may be or goals established. So for tier 1, it would be maintaining it below that target. If for tier 2, it's potentially setting goals because there's no performance metric or target that has to be met at that point. But I hope that kind of helps to answer the question. Please let me know if it doesn't, or Luke, if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, and I think the intent here is that one of the roles of the energy manager and the energy management plan, like you said, is to maintain the energy use of the building, not increase it unless there is some change of use that creates a space activity that is higher in energy use intensity or lower in energy use intensity. And in those cases, the target can be adjusted based on that. So their goal or their target can be adjusted depending on changes of use, either up or down. If the building does not have a target, the intent here is just that the change of use impacts on energy use intensity are noted and used in analysis of building performance over time.
Thanks, Luke.
Great, thanks. I hope that answers the question. Again, Jeanette, if you need more clarifications, let us know. So the next one, really good question from Catherine Morgan. Will buildings over 50,000 gross square feet that are exempt due to less than 50,000 conditional area, but have 20,000 of condition area be expected to comply with tier 2 requirements? You have that, so it's a 50,000 square foot building, but they're exempt because they don't have at 50,000 conditional space. They have about 20,000, so will they comply with tier 2?
Yeah, they may be exempt from tier 1 requirements if they meet those thresholds outlined in Z 4.1 for exemption, and that might kick them into the tier 2 category at that point.
Great, thank you. So for the proposed changes to the lighting schedule section, when you say the buildings that have implemented a lighting upgrade through a utility rebate program within the previous 5 years can use the lighting schedule provided, is that the lighting schedule provided by the utility rebate program, or where is this being provided?
Yeah, I think if there's a lighting schedule provided by the rebate program, that would suffice. And this is a proposed change that we welcome input on. If you have any considerations or something that we're missing, please let us know on that.
Great, thanks, Donnie.
I'll just add to that. We've had comments and concerns regarding the lighting schedule and lighting satisfaction survey being quite onerous in relative to the potential savings. So we're looking for allowances that would allow one to forego those requirements where lighting measures have already been implemented, or lighting is typically a low-hanging fruit. There's a lot of support from the utilities around lighting retrofits. So we hope that everybody takes a look at their lighting and participates in rebate incentive programs to improve that energy consumption.
Donnie, can you move on to the next slide? 2 more after that about the lighting language, just so that we have them.
Yep.
Okay. So from Greg, a bit of confusion on when an owner improves their building with an EM, do they then need to track this?
Yeah, so energy management plan, as I mentioned, it's a living document, right? So it's really looking at the whole building. It's looking at every component of the building. So as things change, they would need to be tracked. It changes with the building. So any energy efficiency measures that are implemented would need to be just tracked, and then those measures would need to have their own operations and maintenance considerations implemented, right, as part of the O&M program.
Yeah, the EMP does not require the energy audit or energy efficiency measures to be recorded and documented and submitted to Commerce via Form D, which is the audit template required for Tier 1 buildings that are either applying for conditional compliance or complying through the investment criteria. But it's just a task for the energy manager to include within the energy management plan.
Great, thanks for the clarification. So is it, Steve asked, is it anticipated that a performance metric will be required for tier 2 buildings in the future? Donnie, can you go to the timeline just so they can illustrate when it's
Yeah.
expected?
Apologize for the scrolling.
I like how it's like fast forward,
All right.
rewind.
Yeah, Luke or Emily, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure, Donnie, I'm happy to take it. So yeah, as far as tier 2 buildings having a performance standard in the future, the bill reads to say the first reporting cycle will happen in 2027, and it's just reporting, as Donnie has talked about, with energy management, operations and maintenance, and benchmarking. Commerce is required to evaluate the benchmarking data that we receive in 2027 and to make a recommendation to the legislature about a future performance standard. We would be required to report in 2029. We would do rulemaking around that, and then if the standard were to come into play, it would be in 2031, and it would be following the legislative session. So the legislature would have an opportunity to either take action or not with that recommendation. So hopefully that clarifies. If there's any follow-up questions, let me know.
Awesome, thanks, Emily. So next question, or need some clarification. So for tier 2, there are no EUITs, or just they aren't required to meet it?
Yeah, I can provide some clarification there, and hope Luke, feel free to jump in if need be. But yeah, we're, as part of benchmarking, the process of benchmarking is analyzing your building's energy use and comparing it to a target, right? Or so the idea here would be that ideally you could identify the target for the building, the UIT, but you wouldn't be required to actually meet the target at this time.
Great, thanks, Donnie, for that clarification. So Michael asked if we could show some of the last couple slides. I'm not sure which slides we went through, I'm sorry. But no worries, these slides will be emailed to everyone that's registered, and it will be posted on our website. So Emily asks, are there any updates on what the tier 2 penalties might be if they don't comply in 2027?
Yeah, Luke, do you want to take that?
Donnie.
Or Emily?
Yeah, I'll take a swing, jump in.
Go.
As far as penalties go, the bill specifies specifically that we have authority to assess penalty fines at 30 cents per square foot. We have workshops scheduled in July that we plan to review the administrative requirements. So what we're proposing would be Annex Y. And so that'll be a topic for discussion in our July workshop, and we welcome any input that y'all want to contribute on that one. I know, Luke, Donnie, anything you want to add with that?
Nope.
Sounds great.
Thanks.
Great, thanks, Emily. So Catherine asks, example follow-up. So there's a 300,000 square foot warehouse with 30,000 square feet of office area, only conditioned space, would be exempt in tier 1 and be expected to report compliance later under tier 2. So they should still be, so there should still be an EMP, etc., correct? So
Yeah,
okay.
So EMP, O&M, and benchmarking would be required for the office portion or the covered portion of that 300,000 square foot warehouse. So if they have a 30,000 square feet of covered area, they are not exempt from tier 2 requirements, just from tier 1. So we will cover exemptions for tier 2 buildings in more detail during next month's workshop.
Great, thanks, Luke. So Confirming tier 2 date of applicability is 6/1/2026 for requirements like replacement equipment shall meet the most stringent energy efficiency requirements in the federal equipment standards, state equipment standards, and applicable building code. Jeanette, can you just clarify where you got that from?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
thank you.
Okay. So we're reporting on July of 2027, but we have to be reporting for a time frame that we have met the standard. So that's typically the year before.
Yeah, Jeanette, I'll answer this question. Hopefully I'm hearing you correctly, but operations and maintenance program, as the standard is written, is required to be implemented 12 months prior to the compliance date. So for tier 2 buildings, that'd be July 1st of 2026, it needs to be implemented with the compliance date of July 1st of 2027. As far as the replacement of equipment, you know, I'm pretty sure that's the requirements within the energy management plan. So that would just mean that in the energy management plan, whenever it's implemented, and it doesn't necessarily need to be fully implemented until July 1st of 2027 for tier 2 buildings, any replacement of equipment systems must meet the federal or local codes, which essentially means you need a permit, what needs to be permitted, and meet the current codes.
Okay, so that sounds different than the tier 1. We're just saying on July 1, 2027, we have to be ready to start meeting these requirements.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, it'd be, you know, yeah, by the compliance date in the energy management plan needs to be implemented. And this is one of the requirements of the energy management plan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then the operations and maintenance program itself would need to be implemented in a year prior to the compliance date.
Okay, I'll have to go back and check whether it was in EMP or O&M.
Great.
But okay, yeah, thank you, Luke.
Feel free to, you know, send us a follow-up email for more clarification.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Jeanette. Thanks, Luke. I just want to mention that the Smart Building Center created a lighting survey workbook, which is available on their website. It can help with it's a tool that's has all these tabs that aim to help fulfill some of the requirements, such as the survey schedule, things like that. Check it out. Just want to put in a plug for that. And I believe Rebecca's gonna add the link to the chat. So I just want to move on to the next question from Ellie. The proposed date to the definition of the lighting schedule. Why is lamp style excluded rather? That seems important for LPD and to help with EM identification and quantification. The definition as it stands does not require lamp bulb types and fixtures. Ideally, product information includes this, but original fixture and lamp combos are often very different from actual current conditions in many cases. So why is lamp style excluded? Can we go back to the definition slide, please?
Yeah, we had requests that, again, there were features of the lighting schedule that were a bit onerous, and it was our belief that if, as long as we get the lighting power density for the luminaire and the lighting power for the luminaire, that a lamp count was not necessary. But we appreciate any other feedback.
Thanks, Sally. If you put in a formal comment on that and you feel very strongly with that, you can send in the comment and we'll take things into consideration. So Casey says, Luke said we would cover tier 2 exemptions next month. Is there current draft language we could view now? Casey, there is no current draft language for the exemption, which would be our quote unquote Annex Y. We are currently working on that and developing the language for it. The draft language will be posted a week before the workshop and it's usually emailed to those who have registered for the previous workshop, so they can continue to be involved. That Annex Y will not only include the penalties, it'll talk about documentation and exemptions and things that items that are seen in Annex Z for Tier 1. So next,
Adeline, the only thing that
go ahead.
Thanks. I was going to add real quick. I think we can expect the exemptions for Tier 2 to mirror pretty closely what we have for Tier 1. If there's items we should be considering that are substantially different, please bring those comments to the next workshop and we can talk through those.
Thanks, Emily. So Susan makes a comment. I think the timeline for commerce and the timeline for us is very confusing. Susie, do you want to clarify what you mean? Perhaps we could better communicate. The timeline on the slide is specifically to kind of our workshop and the rules, not necessarily the process of compliance, like when you should benchmark, when you should start the energy management plan and operations and maintenance program. I hope that clarifies it.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Sorry. I guess, you know, as the person that's the liaison between your information and the private schools, I need both. And so I'm sure it's somewhere and I just need to look around. But what I need is so this is the timeline for the comments, and everybody on my side is waiting for, like, when are we supposed to be doing what? And so that's the timeline that I need to either find or create.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Susie, for that feedback. So right now we don't have anything in which says if your building is 20,000 square feet, this is when you should start benchmarking, but it is a good idea for some kind of guidance document. We have something similar to it for like 220K building, like somewhat of a timeline. It's found on our website, but I would look out for something like this in the future when all the rules are kind of finalized and we could figure out the timeline, and we could put it on paper to have better guidance out there. Thank you so much. So let's see if we have anything else. I think that was it. Again, Rebecca put in that lighting survey workbook in the chat. Check it out. It's to help with lighting requirements. The Smart Building Center worked with Commerce and other utility providers to kind of help create that. So it's a really great tool. You should check it out for Tier 1 buildings and Tier 2. Are there other, I'm going to just give it a minute for more comments and questions. And so, Donnie, can you move to next steps so I could just talk about next steps while we're waiting for more questions and comments to come in?
Yeah, I also want to just revisit the proposal to require some sort of a training for folks that choose not to use a qualified person, and
Okay,
if there's
let's-
any feedback on that.
Yeah. You want to
No,
talk about that first?
Yeah, I mean, just looking, something maybe similar to what the Seattle benchmarking, tune-up program is doing, where, kind of an online training with a certificate of completion where you have to meet a certain threshold. If somebody's submitting documentation that doesn't meet the qualifications of a qualified person.
Okay, so let's see. Like we said, this workshop is being recorded. So if you didn't catch the beginning part, or you spoke too fast, or you just want to get more detail and listen to it carefully, the link will be posted on our website. It'll probably be next week. Either way, it will be emailed to you because you registered for this workshop. You will also receive the slide deck and the proposed rules. They're already posted. Please take some time to review the material, submit comments. We value your comments and feedback. So lastly, our next workshop would be July 12th. We changed the topic. We were going to talk about Tier 1 amendments and changes, and we were going to talk about the incentive program. However, we found it best that we cover Annex Y, which is Annex Z for Tier 2. It will be a section in the standard that will provide the administrative requirements, and it'll talk about topics such as building owner notification, compliance documents, exemptions, penalties, etc. So it's a pretty big topic. We hope you could continue to stay involved. We have to set up the registration, but I'll email it to you. You'll see it in the bulletin, and we'll post the registration link there. And so please register, look out for the proposed rules for the next workshop. I'm sure a lot of you are interested in what the administrative requirements are. Luke, you have something to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that we caught a editorial mistake here. The slide says the next workshop is on July 12th. It's actually on July 13th.
Oh, good catch, Luke.
Danielle caught that. So it's listed on our website. It's the appropriate date, July 13th, which is a Thursday.
Great, let me see if there's more questions. Nope. Susie, I'm going to show you something that we have for larger buildings as far as the timeline. I'll find your email and I will send you a link. And Emily, oh, Luke, your hand is still up. Do you still want to talk? Your hand getting tired?
I fell asleep. So
Fell asleep. Okay, great. Emily, should we wait a little more for questions, or would you like to conclude?
I think we can go ahead and conclude. I just want to tell everybody thank you so much for your time and active participation today. Please continue to submit your comments to us. It's immensely helpful for us to shape the standards. So thank you.